From ELCA Advocacy, this is Here I Pod. There's so much happening in our communities every week and every day that are impacted by policies at the local, state, and federal levels. Here I Pod will focus on one aspect of what's happening each episode by talking with faith-based advocates, as well as providing steps that you can take in your own advocacy efforts. The interviews you're about to hear were recorded on location at the World Hunger Leadership Gathering, which took place this September in Columbus, Ohio. Let's hand it over to Regina.
Welcome back to Here I Pod. I'm your host, Regina Banks, and this time I'm on location here in Columbus, Ohio at the ELCA World Hunger Leadership Gathering, an event that brings together leaders from across the church to strengthen relationships, share learning, and equip one another for the hard and holy work of ending hunger. Over 96% of ELCA congregations are involved in a feeding ministry. From small food pantries and community meals to multi-site food banks, ELCA congregations are engaged in missional feeding of our neighbor. This year's gathering takes place at a milestone moment. The first is the 50th anniversary of ELCA World Hunger. For half a century, World Hunger has grown from direct food relief to a robust global effort addressing the root causes of poverty and hunger. We're also at a critical time in our nation's history with respect to our investment in the social safety net. In previous episodes, we've mentioned briefly the coming cuts to SNAP. The Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program provides food benefits to low-income families to supplement their grocery budget so they can afford the nutritious food essential to health and well-being. The legislation, commonly referred to as the One Big Beautiful Bill, cuts billions from SNAP, reducing its spending significantly while tightening eligibility and boosting work requirements. It aims to save federal dollars, but will likely increase food insecurity for millions who depend on SNAP. The participants at the World Hunger Leadership Gathering are our siblings whose ministries will be asked to pick up the slack when those cuts land in our communities. This episode, I'll be speaking with ELCA staff organizers who helped plan the gathering, participants who have come from every corner of the country, and ministry partners here in Ohio whose local work embodies the themes of the event. Together, we'll explore how this gathering is equipping us, not only to meet immediate needs, but to cultivate lasting systemic change. So whether you're a longtime hunger leader or just beginning to wonder how faith connects with justice, you're in the right place. Let's dive into the conversations and commitments shaping the road toward a world without hunger.
Hello, everyone. My name is Reverend Dr. Everdith Jadi Landrau Plus, also known as Evie, and I'm the Director of Networks and Engagement for ELCA World Hunger.
So where are we this week?
This week, we are in Columbus, Ohio. We are gathered for the 2025 ELCA World Hunger Leadership Gathering, which is an event that brings together volunteers, Cine Hunger team leaders, and partners from across the United States, the globe, and the Caribbean.
What was your hope for the ELCA World Hunger Leadership Gathering when you were planning?
My hope was, along with my team, to create a space where hunger leaders can gain tools, can come together to talk about the intersections of hunger, to continue to learn of ways in which we can, together as a community, not only eradicate hunger, but also build relationships with one another.
Has that happened?
I believe that it has happened. By everything I've heard so far and experienced myself, I really think that the leaders have been able to grasp the importance of this moment, the importance of our action and the urgency of our action. And I also believe that the participants have had an opportunity to meet Ohio partners and understand the awesome work that our hunger partners are doing here in the state of Ohio. I think that it has been a great opportunity to be impressed in a way by all things happening in a place where we often don't think about what our different communities and smaller towns and states are doing.
What is one thing that you're going to be taking with you into your work for the next 18 months? The Hunger Leadership Gathering meets every 18 months. So what's going to fuel you for the next year and a half?
First and foremost, like the stories, all the stories that I have heard from folks that have been involved in the work over 40, 50 years to those that are new coming into the movement. I'm really excited about the ways that I hope to go back home and strategize or think about ways that I can strengthen each region, what resources I can help provide, what ideas I can help foster, what connections and relationships I can help build in my role. So at the top of, for me, for the rest of the year and into 2026 is going to be really continuing to help my network know each other, build relationships, and understand that the work that they do matters.
Did you know that based on what they heard here, there's a letter that's already circulating to legislators based on what they heard here? They're like, oh no, we need to advocate for SNAP and other social safety net programs. Did you know that was happening?
I did not know that that was happening. And so that to me, that is a testament to what this space is and what good networking is. Good networking, in my opinion, is not only about bringing people together, people of different community and experiences, lived experience together. It's about people getting excited for themselves and taking the initiative and coming up with their own solutions to the problems. We have heard over and over through all the stories that we are not powerless. We are powerful together. And I think that's one of the messages that hopefully everyone is going to take with them, because it's really easy to get discouraged when you're not alone, because none of us exist alone, but when you're disconnected from other colleagues and peers, and when you come together to a space like this, you're like, wow, there's so much more I can draw from. There's so much inspiration, and the work I'm doing, united with all the work everyone here is doing, is moving the purpose forward.
Part of the good networking that Dr. Landrau described is on display in this first conversation with Ohio-based advocates. Let's hear from them directly, starting with
Nick Bates, a deacon in the ELCA, and I serve as director of the Hunger Network in Ohio, our state public policy office.
Katelin Hansen, Deaconess with the United Methodist Church, and I serve at United Methodist Church for All People and Community Development for All People.
Tell us about your ministry.
So the church owns the nonprofit, and the nonprofit is the ministry arm of the church. Like lots of churches, we give away clothing and food and do other stuff, but it got big enough that it needed its own nonprofit subsidiary. And so I serve on the church side with worship and preaching and other stuff. And then on the nonprofit side, I serve as CFO, helping the nonprofit execute the vision of the church as we build a community for all people.
We're here visiting your site, and we just took a tour of several of the facilities. Can you tell us a little bit about the ministries that go on?
Yeah, we have 5 core ministries here. It began with the Free Store, which gives away about $2 to $3 million in clothing and household items each year. We have a housing initiative that's developed just about $200 million in below market rate housing. We have Thrive to 5 that helps babies be born full term, full weight, survive to their first birthday, and thrive into kindergarten readiness. And a youth development program that helps scholars in an after-school program and a summer freedom schools program to become transformation agents in their own community. We have a couple of subsidiary social enterprises, including Bikes for All People, Coffee for All People, and All People Arts as well.
Nick, can you tell us a little bit about how you all advocate for this ministry and ministries like it in Ohio and what that means for your state advocacy and federal advocacy?
Yeah, at the Hunger Network in Ohio, we work to end hunger by addressing the root causes of poverty through public policy advocacy. And we have great partners like Church and Community Development for All People who are doing the work. They are beneficiaries of the funds that we advocate for food banks, for healthcare programs, for public access, and public benefits programs, housing assistance, and so many other things that we advocate for. And we do not advocate for them because these are issues we read a policy brief about. We advocate for them because of the stories that come out of places like this. We advocate for these things and develop our policy agenda based on the stories and the experiences that ministries throughout Ohio are doing and where they see the need.
Will your ministry be affected by cuts and changes to the SNAP program?
We absolutely anticipate that it will be. We receive funding from a major children's hospital system here that will be affected by Medicaid and tariffs and research funding cuts. We're also directly affected by or directly funded by Medicaid agencies. And we're seeing cuts to food bank funding. And so we currently run the All People's Fresh Market, which distributes about 3 million pounds of produce each year. It's part of our Healthy Eating and Living initiative. And at the same time that we see families about to face severe SNAP cuts, we're seeing cuts to food pantries. And that we anticipate will be a significant challenge. Last year, our funding was about 50% government-based. And so we are doing significant work to pivot that. The theory is that less government spending means lower taxes and money in people's pockets. Then our call to the individual taxpayer is it's up to us now. And so we are seeking out individual donors, both small and large, to stand in the gap and say, this is our time, this is our community, and let's step up and take responsibility. It's up to us.
Do you have a story of a client or parishioner that you anticipate will be affected by the cuts to these programs?
So many of my closest friends are unhoused or unstably housed, and I know the health of our community was directly affected by Medicaid expansion in Ohio. And if that's at risk of disappearing, if we've got families with large numbers of children that come shop at the fresh market every single day, which we welcome, that will affect the health outcomes of those individuals and children. Our congregation is about 60% at or below the poverty line. Most folks in the church make less than $20,000 a year. So most of my friends and church family will be directly affected by that.
Nick, you were instrumental in getting the Hunger Leadership Gathering to come and visit this site. What was it about the site that you wanted for us to see, and what did you want for our hunger leaders to take away from this experience?
Yeah, I really wanted our hunger leaders to experience the work that is going on here on the South Side, because so often government funding, nonprofit funding, grants, foundations, even our congregations are very isolated in what they work on. And we are going to give food out once a week. We're going to give out diapers once a month. Both important things to be doing, but then when the church down the street that was doing support and work in another area closes or isn't able to keep up with demand, then there's something missing. And what we need to do is recognize that our neighbors are whole people. They are not individual issues. Mm-hmm. And therefore we need to take a holistic approach. And that is one of the things that has always impressed me about the work going on here with Church and Community Development for All People, is they are looking at how do we help families with young babies? How do we help people get food? How do we help people get housing? How do we help people get cleaning supplies that they need? How do we help people get to and from work? I'd write down the line all these different issues. And how do we build community? How do we bring people together? Because it doesn't matter if you're, rich or poor, black or white, whatever how the world tells us to divide ourselves. We are all one community. We are all beloved children of God. And how do we come together to support one another, to show love to one another, and be in relationship with one another? And that is one of the big takeaways I hope everyone has, is to center the relationships we have with our neighbor.
Have you shared your concerns for what these policy changes are going to mean for your ministry and your friends, and your community?
Yeah, absolutely. We've shared the stories and the potential impact of these policy changes through partnerships like with Nick and with the Hunger Network in Ohio. At the State House, we invite legislators to come visit us, and each opportunity that we have to affect policy out of the direct lived experience of our community puts a face and a name on the budget line items and the policies and legislation that these folks are voting on. So it matters to bring those two things together.
Have they been receptive?
I think we find they're either highly aligned and receptive, but maybe feel disempowered, or maybe aren't as convinced as we would like them to be.
Nick, tell us a little bit about the Hunger Network in Ohio. Who's at that table?
Yeah, so at the Hunger Network in Ohio, we are an ecumenical ministry. As a state public policy office of the ELCA, we have all 3 ELCA synods as part of our network who are regularly attending and participating in our events. But we also have the United Methodist Church, the Presbyterian Church USA, the Episcopal Church, and the United Church of Christ as part of our board. And then we also work very closely with the Dominican Sisters for Peace and many other faith communities, including interfaith groups that care about justice, that care about how we are called to love our neighbor. And it really is, how do we build those bridges and relationships between those in our communities, whether you're suburban, urban, or rural, and with our lawmakers, so that they can hear the stories and build those relationships, so that when it's no longer just House Bill 123, it is their neighborhood, their street, their friends, the stories from our community. So that is our main goal, is how do we help get the stories from the community to the lawmakers who are making crucial votes and decisions that are going to impact those stories.
Nick, is it important for our members to be working on these issues ecumenically?
We must be working on all these different issues ecumenically, because collectively, with other people of faith and other faith traditions, we have so many different stories, different experiences, different assets that I think we can all lean into and learn and grow together. And the more voices we have that are all proclaiming a new way of being community, the stronger I think that voice is, and the more it will be heard.
Last question for you both. Where have you seen the gospel recently?
I see the good news of the gospel every time someone is in relationship with someone else in authentic love and mutuality. People really do understand that we belong to each other and that we're responsible for each other. And when we wake up to that notion, beautiful, powerful things happen. And so we are concerned about cuts to funding to food pantries. And at the same time, we know that people are growing food in their own gardens to bring to the fresh market. Between I and my neighbors, we've brought 150 pounds over the last couple of months. And that's out of very small gardens that we just started. We've seen neighbors come together in the larger community gardens that the church owns, and they've produced thousands of pounds of produce that come through the fresh market. And so it is that mutual love and belonging that is the witness of the gospel that ultimately sees us through in practical ways, and is also the koinonia, the community that I think God always intended for us.
I see the gospel often when we are doing events at the State House or even online events where we've opened it up to people from across the state, and people from rural communities and urban communities are becoming friends. When people from different economic positions or different race or different generations are developing those authentic relationships with one another around our call to do God's justice. Because the world tries to divide us. People in power want us divided, but the gospel overcomes that division. And it's just such a beautiful thing to hear stories being shared that are so similar from these different communities that are, where we're told we are worlds apart and we don't have anything in common, yet we do.
Thank you both very much.
We'll now join Regina as she visits and speaks with one of the representatives of the Mid-Ohio Farm on the Hilltop, which served as one of the site visits for gathering attendees.
Hello, my name is Hallie Carrino-Lee. I am the Government Relations and Advocacy Manager at the Mid-Ohio Food Collective. We are here actually at one of our assets, the Mid-Ohio Farm on the Hilltop in beautiful Columbus, Ohio. So just been really excited to have you guys here today to learn about the farm and about our work in general. We advocate on a variety of issues, mostly center around just anti-hunger initiatives and anti-poverty initiatives. And so much of that centers around our policy priorities. I'll give you a big three that we kind of focus on. One is the strengthening of government programs. So that includes programs that help to support our anti-hunger initiatives and our ability to serve our neighbors. So that includes programs like TFAP, which is the Emergency of Food Assistance Program. That's a federal program. Programs like SNAP, which is a Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. Other federal assistance programs that might be beneficial to our neighbors so that they might access, including Medicaid, for instance, and so on. The second of that kind of pillar we can talk about is focusing on root causes. So we like to talk about ways that we can address hunger upstream. So we'll talk about social determinants of health, so environmental factors that might lead people to experience hunger, experience poverty, talk about how things like racism or environmental factors, housing, can impact someone's ability to access food. So those are things that we like to talk about when we're advocating and educating the public about our work. And then the third thing that I think is a big pillar of also what we talk about is our food is medicine work. And so today, when you all were here at the farm, you got to hear from our dietitian on staff, Dr. Amy Headings, talk about our pharmacy program. That kind of is the thesis to our food is health programming, teaching individuals about coinciding with the farm kind of seed to plant of the journey of food, talking about how food is utilized as nourishment, and teaching people how food can allow people to live happier, healthy lives, have great health outcomes for them as well. So I would say those are kind of like the three big pillars of things that we advocate for.
Can you tell us a little bit about what you talk to policymakers about with respect to SNAP?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we're talking to policymakers about SNAP, we like to talk about SNAP as an economic driver, for one thing, and a workforce driver. So SNAP is a great opportunity to, one, generate economic revenue in small communities, especially rural communities. Oftentimes, small grocers heavily rely on SNAP recipients to be able to keep their grocery stores open. I believe for every dollar that is generated within the SNAP program, about $1.50 is generated economically. So bringing that revenue into communities. SNAP is a great opportunity for families to feel dignified in terms of what they are able to shop for. When someone is going through food insecurity and worrying about budgeting effectively, we want to have our neighbors feel dignified that when they are utilizing their SNAP dollars, that they have accessibility to the foods that they want for their families. And so we like to talk about benefit adequacy. And so making sure that the benefits are readily accessible for individuals. So are they able to access it effectively? Either can they use it in a grocery app? Are they able to utilize their card effectively? Are their benefits accessible and not being stolen from them? Currently in the state of Ohio, we're dealing with a significant issue of SNAP theft of benefits. That's an issue that we've been talking about with legislators a lot. In addition to that, we talk about benefit accessibility and talk about program accessibility. How easy is it for someone to get an interview for getting onto the SNAP program? How accessible are they able to get to someone who works with Job and Family Services if they lose their card or have trouble accessing their card? For instance, there's a lot of different things that we could talk about. SNAP is a very complicated program, but it's a really well-functioning program. And for every one meal that we do as a food bank, SNAP does 9. And so the magnitude of SNAP as a program, how it exists in terms of anti-hunger initiatives, is amazing. And so seeing cuts to programs like SNAP is something that we are very worried about its impacts on our work as a food bank. It's really kind of tough to tell when we'll start to feel some of the effects of the changes to SNAP. Some of the early effects that we'll see from SNAP will happen as early as October 1st. Those are when some of the initial work requirements will be in place, expanding up the age requirement for able-bodied adults to 64, which is new. We'll see other work requirements and other barriers to who can access SNAP start to be implemented later in 2026 into 2027 and 2028 as we get closer to midterms. And when you create barriers to access for programs like SNAP, you create a struggle for families to be able to access the program as a whole. You deter people from wanting to access it in the first place. And so when people don't have the ability to access said program, they'll look to turn to other means like food banks. So food banks are able to serve up to 200% of the poverty line. Of course, what that income level is dependent on family size, but food banks fill that gap for those who can't qualify for SNAP or have the inability or don't feel comfortable applying for SNAP in the first place. So if we think about immigrant communities, for instance, and a lot of changes that have been proposed by the One Big Beautiful Bill in terms of immigrants with specific legal statuses that no longer can access SNAP, you have a lot of families that maybe have that legal status that are like, well, what are my options now? And really, food banks might be your only options. And so with these expansions, with some of these work requirements, we talk a lot about this phrase called the benefits cliff. And so a lot of families will fall off of programs like SNAP, like Medicaid, because they're doing all the right things. They're expanding their education. They're trying to get a bigger or better job and looking for that raise. And when they get that raise, well, they get kicked off the income threshold and then they get kicked off the program. And essentially you stay in this kind of cycle of poverty, essentially. And so where do they come after that? They come to us. And so we know that life happens and that if a family is in need, that they can come to us and come and get the food, healthy, fresh foods that we are providing at our markets, at our pantries, any of our partner agencies. But we know that the rising need that we may see as part of the SNAP cuts, we won't be able to keep up with. Philanthropy won't be able to meet the need that SNAP now fills. And so we're just anticipating how we can educate our neighbors about ways that they can protect themselves from getting their benefits stolen, for instance, how they can learn more about SNAP programs and so that they can stay on the program, so that they're reporting their income effectively, they're reporting the household size effectively. Because another thing that is huge that's been introduced with changes to the One Big Beautiful Bill is this new cost share. And that is something that a lot of states should be very worried about. So for the longest time, the cost share for administrative costs for states and the federal government was 75-25. It's now a 50-50 split. So now state governments are being required to come up with this extra funding to be able to support this program administratively. In addition to that, states are now being also required to pay for the benefits as well and help to find money for that too. So if you have a state government that might not have enough funds to be able to support these programs based on the amount of people that might be on the program, well, that is something of grave concern. The split of what is going to be required for a state to pay for the benefits is based on a state's error rate. Error rates are set by the USDA. Error rates can be caused by mostly administrative issues. And so when a state has a high error rate, there is more of a requirement that the state has to come up with dollars-wise. And so if a state has a 10% error rate, for instance, in their SNAP program, that could be hundreds of millions of dollars that state now has to come up with to pay for that program. So does it potentially mean that a SNAP program can cease to exist in a state? We don't know. There's a lot of question marks that we have. And so our job is to continue to educate people about how SNAP is actually a really great program. It's a program that works. It's a program that generates revenue in communities. It teaches people about nutrition. It teaches people about how to budget effectively, and it definitely fills helps to fill the gap that we help to fill as well. So,
Who are your allies, who are your coworkers, companions in this advocacy effort?
so in the advocacy space for anti-hunger, anyone who cares about feeding people can be an ally for us. So we are grateful to partner with, here in Ohio, we have a really strong agriculture community. So we're really grateful for our agriculture partners. We're really grateful for all of our community partners, whether it's our shelters and our pantries and our YMCAs and all kinds of other community action groups. We're really grateful for our industry partners. So whether it's our big retailers that are helping to also donate surplus to us. So, your big box sellers, so your Myers, your Kruegers, and your groups like that, whether it's our smaller scale farmers that are donating supplies to them, our churches, of course, who are bringing in volunteers and are uplifting our work, whether it's Sunday in church or they're coming and doing fundraisers or donations for us, whatever it may be. Anyone can be an anti-hunger advocate, and we'll take in anybody who is interested in learning more about our work, because it's so much more than just food insecurity. It's housing, it's childcare, it's accessibility to water and transportation. Like, hunger is often the shoe-in to a lot of these other societal issues, if you want to call it that. So a lot of times when we have a family coming to us in one of our markets or one of our pantries, food is often the last thing that people ask for assistance with and ask for help with, because it's the last flexible thing that you really be in your budget. You can forgo your food budget. You can maybe forgo your healthcare budget if you have one, but phrases we always like to throw around is like the rent eats first, heat not eat. And so we know that oftentimes when someone is coming to us for help, we know that there are probably other things that we can help with too. And so everything is all connected. And so anyone, if you're interested in housing, you're also interested in food insecurity. If you're interested in childcare or economic growth in a community, you're interested in hunger. So, of course.
In this final section, we'll hear directly from people who attended this year's gathering and what they've learned.
I'm Deidre Jacobsen from the Northwest Intermountain Synod. I'm involved with a ministry called Shalom Ministry, Dining with Dignity in Spokane, Washington. This is my first hunger gathering, and I have been so incredibly moved by the experience here and learned so much about what the Lutheran Church is doing in the United States and the world. I have fallen in love with this church body, and I guess that which I long to become more involved in, if I can, is immigration.
I'm Kris Bartinen, and this is also my first time at the Hunger Leaders Gathering. I'm from the Phoenix, Arizona area, part of the Grand Canyon Synod. I am involved in especially leading the Northeast Valley Consortium this year, and proud to have been part of expanding our heat respite lunch program to 16 weeks for persons experiencing homelessness in Central and South Phoenix. Concerns, a number of them, but in particular, we learned here about the lack of passage of the Farm Bill, and of course, we're reminded of the very significant cuts to hunger, supporting programs, funding for hunger, and other elements that support persons experiencing homelessness and other challenges. So I'm so proud to have seen our young adults who are attending here step up, draft a letter on behalf of all of us that folks are in the process of signing on to this morning, and so bring our collective voices as advocates to hopefully bring some systemic change in this very challenging moment.
Yes, my name is Mary Claire James from Alameda, California, and I'm a member of the Sierra Pacific Synod Hunger Network.
What is something new that you've learned here at the Hunger Leadership Gathering?
I've learned more about the situation with SNAP and WIC, as well as a lot about Lutheran disaster relief and the some of the issues facing people in disasters and poverty.
Is there anything that particularly concerns you for your ministry?
Where do I start? Okay, a lot, because I have no tolerance for unnecessary suffering, and I see a lot of it on the road and happening now, and it's just wrong. So my mission now to go back and see what we can do in our network and around the state and getting the word out. I think the more people that know what's going on and how they can make a difference is impactful and powerful.
You were in the Advocacy 201 session. Tell us a little bit about what you learned.
There was a lot. What I did learn is I've got information I need to be sharing with people who don't know about what's going to happen. The people who will be most affected, I think, are the people who don't know at all what's happening with SNAP and the work requirements with Medicaid, that we need to get the word out so that they know that they can do some kind of preparation, and also our churches, because we're going to be the front lines that they come to when this storm hits in full force. And we will have to figure out how we're going to make a difference here and what we can do to stop this now.
So my name is Rosa Fuentes. I am the pastor of Trinidad Lutheran Church in Humboldt Park, Chicago.
Something new that you have learned here at the Hunger Leadership Gathering?
Something new that I have learned here during this week was the church compromise to work with intersectionality and how they are using this acronym MERGE, which talk about migration justice, the second is economic, environment, the second, racial justice, gender justice, and economic justice. And of course, it's not enough. There are many other justice that we need to work with, but they use that to represent intersectionality as something we have to work, and that's very cool and good, and I support.
What is something that you've learned that made you concerned for your ministry or congregation?
So something that I learned or heard, and it probably wasn't even intentional, but the way sometimes people who are doing hunger work speak about hunger work seems to be a little bit distant from the community that actually live those experiences. And the fact is that people who do hunger work, a lot of them are part of the community that needs hunger work, right? So of course, depending on your social context, you might have not had to experience hunger work, and you are supporting communities, but you're not the savior. And we are all working, and I think it is important to recognize that grassroots communities work for their communities, and it's not other outsiders coming to the community to work. So I think bridging those things, it's important, and not only seeing, the World Hunger Leadership is just helping these communities. No, we are the community.
Thank you to all the contributors to this episode who shared their wisdom, perspective, and expertise with us. The show notes for this episode are chock full of credits and links, including details about how you can get involved in addressing hunger in your community. You'll also find links to 2 Farm Bill-related action alerts, which are directly connected to issues discussed throughout this episode. This concludes this episode of Here I Pod. If you want to contact us, You can email us over at elcaadvocacypodcast@elca.org or leave us a voicemail at 866-740-3522. Thank you for listening.